In a world where the divine often reigns above, one man, born as a mortal, transcended human limitations through sheer determination and insight. This is the story of the Buddha, a beacon of enlightenment who did not hoard his wisdom but generously shared it with humanity. The Buddha's teachings reveal the boundless potential of the human mind, emphasizing self-liberation over divine intervention. Discover how the Buddha uplifted humanity by challenging the oppressive caste system, advocating for equality, and founding the first religious order for women. Marvel at his compassion as he ministered to the sick, consoled the grieving, and saved the downtrodden. His profound wisdom and relentless pursuit of truth inspired millions, from commoners to kings, saints to sinners. Let's delve into the life of the Buddha, a revolutionary teacher whose legacy of compassion, wisdom, and equality continues to illuminate the path to enlightenment. Witness the impact of his noble example, celebrated by scholars and revered by followers across the globe. This video unveils why the Buddha is hailed as one of the greatest figures in human history. A man whose teachings resonate with the modern quest for inner peace and universal harmony. Stay with us and be inspired by the timeless wisdom of the Buddha. Born a mortal and living as a mortal, the Buddha achieved the ultimate state of perfection, known as Buddhahood, through his own efforts. Instead of keeping his enlightenment to himself, the Buddha shared his enlightenment with the world, revealing the latent potential and invincible power of the human mind. Rather than placing an unseen almighty God above man and assigning a subservient role to humanity, the Buddha demonstrated how individuals could attain supreme knowledge and enlightenment through their own efforts. The Buddha elevated the value of humanity, teaching that people can liberate themselves from life's suffering and attain the eternal bliss of Tathagata without relying on an external god or mediating priests. The Buddha taught the egocentric, power-seeking world the noble ideal of selfless service. The Buddha protested against the evils of the caste system that hampered the progress of mankind and advocated equal opportunities for all. The Buddha proclaimed that the gates of deliverance were open to all, regardless of their life's circumstances, whether high or low, saint or sinner, if they chose to turn over a new leaf and strive for perfection. The Buddha raised the status of downtrodden women, helping them realize their importance to society and founding the first religious order for women. For the first time in the history of the world, the Buddha attempted to abolish slavery. The Buddha prohibited the sacrifice of unfortunate animals and brought them within his compass of loving kindness. The Buddha did not force his followers to become slaves to his teachings or to himself. Instead, he granted complete freedom of thought and urged his followers to accept his words only after thoroughly examining them, even as the wise would test gold by burning, cutting, and rubbing it on a piece of touchstone. The Buddha consoled the bereaved mothers like Patakara and Kisagotami with comforting words. The Buddha ministered to the deserted sick like Puddhagata Tissathera with his own hands. The Buddha helped the poor and the neglected like Rajumala and Sopaka, saving them from an untimely and tragic death. The Buddha ennobled the lives of criminals like Angulimala and courtesans like Ambapali. The Buddha encouraged the weak, united the divided, enlightened the ignorant, clarified the mystic, guided the deluded, elevated the base, and dignified the noble. People from all walks of life, rich and poor, saint and criminal, loved the Buddha alike. The Buddha's noble example was a source of inspiration to all. He was the most compassionate and tolerant of teachers. His will, wisdom, compassion, service, renunciation, perfect purity, exemplary personal life, the blameless methods that were employed to propagate the Dhamma and his final success, All these factors have led about 1/5 of the population of the world to hail the Buddha as the greatest religious teacher ever to have lived. Paying a glowing tribute to the Buddha, Sri Radhakrishnan writes, "In Gautama the Buddha, we have a mastermind from the East second to none so far as the influence on the thought and life of the human race is concerned, and sacred to all as the founder of a religious tradition whose hold is hardly less wide and deep than any other. He belongs to the history of the world's thought, to the general inheritance of all cultivated men, for, judged by intellectual integrity, moral earnestness, and spiritual insight, he is undoubtedly one of the greatest figures in history." In The Three Greatest Men in History, H.G. Wells states, "In the Buddha, you see clearly a man, simple, devout, lonely, battling for light, a vivid human personality, not a myth. He too gave a message to mankind universal in character. Many of our best modern ideas are in closest harmony with it. All the miseries and discontents of life are due, he taught, to selfishness. Before a man can become serene, he must cease to live for his senses or himself. Then he merges into a greater being. Buddhism in different language called men to self-forgetfulness 500 years before Christ. In some ways, he was nearer to us and our needs. He was more lucid upon our individual importance and service than Christ, and less ambiguous upon the question of personal immortality. The poet Tagore calls the Buddha the greatest man ever born. In admiration of the Buddha, Fausbell, a Danish scholar, says, 'The more I know him, the more I love him.' A humble follower of the Buddha would modestly say, 'The more I know him, the more I love him. The more I love him, the more I know him.'" Reflecting on the unparalleled greatness of the Buddha, we are reminded of his extraordinary journey from a mortal man to the supreme state of Buddhahood through his own efforts. His profound teachings reveal the immense potential and power within each human mind, encouraging us to strive for the highest knowledge and enlightenment without dependence on external deities or intermediaries. The Buddha's advocacy for equality, selfless service, and compassion transcended societal norms, elevating the worth of all individuals and dismantling the barriers of caste and gender. His compassionate actions, from comforting bereaved mothers to personally tending to the sick and uplifting the downtrodden, exemplify a life of boundless love and service. His noble example continues to inspire millions, reminding us that the path to liberation lies within our own efforts and the purity of our intentions. As Buddhists, let us draw inspiration from the Buddha's life and teachings, cultivating gratitude and motivation to diligently practice the Dhamma. By continuously contemplating our own spiritual journey, we move closer to the enlightenment that the Buddha so selflessly shared with the world. May his wisdom, compassion, and boundless love guide us towards the eternal bliss of Tathagata and the ultimate realization of our true potential. Thank you for watching. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel. Wishing you good health and inner peace every day.